So what is that? It's like have we have ID, name, class name, link text, partial link text, and we have XPath and CSS. Okay, so XPath and CSS. So we looked into these things yesterday. So we talked about like how do we exactly use these things and what is the syntax of it. Okay, so today we'll be discussing about the XPath. It's very important, and most of the questions will be asked in interviews about the XPath. Okay, so what is XPath? What is XPath? XPath is a language. Okay, so XPath is a language. So XML, say whatever we are trying to discuss here, right? So I'll just open the web page here. Okay, we have like Orange HRM, Register, and Amazon.in. So now you can see this is a web page. And if you want to identify the elements, why do we need to identify the elements? To perform some action on them. Okay, so whatever content that we are looking on this web page is a element. Okay, so all element details will be available here in the DOM. Okay, what we say is this is a DOM, document object model. Okay, so all the details about, like for example, if you want to click on this all, so you can see what is that. So it is located under this particular, see, tag name is like span, and it has the attributes and it has a text. Okay, so how do we identify the element? So what is the purpose of identifying the element? Is like to perform some action on it. Okay, and what are the things that are available as part of elements are like, you can see there we have a tag name and we have some attribute. Attribute is equals to some value. Okay, attribute is equals to some value. Here I am. Okay, so we have tag name and we have attribute equals to value. Okay, so this is not the only one attribute. We have other attributes also. For example, we can have like a this attribute can be like ID and ID value, and name value. Then we have a class and class value. So likewise, we have values for each and every attribute, or each and every property on the particular element. Okay, so property are elements. Okay? So now you can see here we have this text. So end by a tag name. Okay, so now you see this is a particular property. For example, you can take any of the properties, go to the web page and see. This is a tag name. You can see tag name. Span is a tag name, and class is equals to, this is nothing but attribute and the value. And we have a text, and again close. It's closed by this span. Okay. Likewise, we have for every element. Okay, for every element we have a different set of properties here. You can see this is a tag name. A is a tag name, and ID is a attribute, and this is a value. Okay, likewise we have like attribute value, attribute value, attribute value, and all these are like properties of this particular element. Okay, so here you can see what is the text. We have the text also available here. You can see this is the text. Okay, so you can see this is a hierarchy actually. Okay, so this is a parent element of this particular element. Okay, so elements which are at the same level, they are called siblings. Okay, they are called siblings. And if for example this is a element and we have some following elements also. Okay, so these are the following elements. The elements which are on the top is like this is like this is the lowest level element here in this particular parent. Okay, so you can consider this is a parent. Okay, this is a parent and these are the childs. Okay, so you can see this is like top child and this is like next. So these the elements which are there defined as like script and div tags. Okay, these are like following elements of this element. And if I take this last element, these are the preceding elements. Okay, this is like above is like preceding, below is like following. Okay, and this is like a parent. Okay, we'll discuss about these things when we are discussing about the accesses. Okay, so now we go and try to understand what is XPath. Okay, XPath is a language which will help you to identify the element in both the ways. Okay, one is like we have an absolute XPath, another one is like relative XPath. Okay, So absolute XPath is like from root level. Okay, from root we are going to identify the element with one slash. Here it is like it will directly go to that, directly point to that particular element. For example, if you want to identify some element, you are going to give the tag name and we have a syntax for that. Okay, so but you need to remember like absolute XPath is like from root it will try to identify the element. Okay, so let us try to understand the XPath, absolute XPath here. So for example, I want to identify this element. If I say we have an option here, okay, so right click on this and you can see copy XPath. When you copy this XPath, you'll get the XPath. So this is the XPath of it. Okay, so this is the XPath of it. So how it is identifying? It is identifying the root. What is the root of it? HTML is the root. From here it is coming HTML. Then after we have body. Okay, then after we have div1. So first div it is taking, and after that it's taking header. Within that header we have a div. Okay, so scroll down. Header, div, then again it's taking the div5, div1 and /a/span. Okay, so now we try to identify this. So I'll show you how do we exactly identify the elements here. Let me put it here. So I'll go to Chrome. Okay, so here also we can identify the element, there also we can identify them. I'll show you here and there also. Okay, so now go to control, when you say control F, so you'll get the small HTML, search HTML here. Okay, so I'll paste it here. Then click on it. So it will show you like where the element is there. Okay, all is highlighted. Okay, can you see this? So it is showing like this is the element where it is identifying with this XPath. Okay, so this is called absolute XPath. Okay, so how do we write the relative XPath? Is like we have a syntax for writing the relative XPath. Okay, so relative XPath as well as like XPath that we are going to identify the element. Okay, with the help of XPath. So what is that? We have to follow the syntax to open the notepad so that I can write the syntax there. Syntax of XPath. Okay, so we have tag name. You have to write double slash tag name at that attribute is equals to value. Okay, so this is like basic syntax of the XPath. Okay, so this is the basic syntax of the XPath. So let's try to understand. So how does it exactly identify this? Like XPath in Selenium is like simply a tactic. Okay, so which will help you to identify the element in terms of like if you're not able to identify the element with help of ID, name, class name, partial link test or link test. Okay, so in that case what we do is like we are going to use the XPath. So most of the most of the teams or most of the people, they would be using this XPath for identifying the element. Okay, so this is the easiest approach and we have a lot of things that we can identify, that we can achieve with the help of like XPath. Okay, so all the elements, like most of the elements, 99% elements can be identified with the help of XPath. So let's go and try to identify some XPath with the help of relative path and as well as like absolute XPath. Okay, so I'm going here Amazon.in. So for example, I want to try to identify this particular search button. Okay, search box. Search box. Let me go here. First, this is the inspector, right? So we need to click on it and just mouse over and click on that particular element. Okay, so now you see we got this. This is a tag name, attribute, and the value. Okay, so likewise we have all the details of it. Okay, so whichever thing which is like constant, which is not changing. So I suggest you to not take the numeric values. Okay, sometimes we can see there are some numeric values in the attribute. For example, you can go somewhere. Yeah, you can see value is equals to 24:1. 241. So next time when you just refresh this page, it may change. Okay. For example, now you see. Somewhere it has gone. Now you see. So that would change its value, but whatever values we have like as the attribute, this wouldn't change. Okay, this will be a constant. So you should not take any kind of like indexing or tab orders or something which is set as part of like a numeric. Okay, so don't take those numerics. For handling those numerics are something which is like which is kind of like changing sometimes, or maybe like we are not sure like this particular attribute may change. For that we have another approach. Okay, I'll talk about them when we are talking about XPath functions. Okay, so now what we do is like we'll try to identify this element with the help of a XPath. Okay, so one is like we'll try to identify with absolute XPath. So that's nothing but directly you can right click first identify the element and right click on the attribute properties here. Okay, then you can go to copy XPath and full XPath. Okay, so we have two things here. We can use any one of this. Okay, so Control F. Now you can paste it here. I'll take this out. You can paste it here. Now you see, this is identifying the element. So here we have like this is the XPath that we are getting it, and the full XPath is like, so it identifies the relative XPath and we'll try to copy the full XPath. Okay, so now you see we got the full XPath. So from root it is coming. Okay, so let's write a program so that we want to identify some element with the help of absolute XPath. What is XPath? XPath is the language. It will help you to identify the elements. Okay, so let me create a separate package for this. This is a big topic, guys. This and because we need to first understand how do we identify the elements. Then only we can go ahead with the rest of the things. Okay, so XPath example. So I will try to copy the content because we have used the same. So to avoid, we can save the time. So yesterday we discussed in the first class we discussed, right, how do we register the driver, then how do we open the Chrome browser, and how do we enter the URL, and how do we identify the element. So what is web element, what is web driver, we have already discussed it. Okay, so now we have identified with the name, right? So now what we are trying to do is like we are going to identify the element of XPath. Okay, XPath and the string, and here we need to add that XPath. Go to this site, copy it, and paste here. Okay, I'll try to comment that quit because I want to see what happens when we are trying to use the XPath, absolute XPath. Forgot to case here. Okay, I need to close the bracket. Right click on this. Now it will open the browser and it will identify the element with the help of XPath. And we have an absolute XPath here. So now entered and clicked on submit button. Okay, so so you can see now we try to identify the element with the help of absolute XPath. Now we'll try to identify the element with the help of relative XPath. Okay, so how do we identify the element with the help of relative XPath? Is like, now you see, I'm going to write a syntax for this. So here we have input and I'm going to take the ID. Okay, so for this, what I need to do is like double forward slash input. This is a tag name. At that ID is equals to what is the value of that ID attribute? Copy this and paste it here. And you see, it is identifying one of one. Okay, so it is identifying one of one. Copy this. So I'll quit it here. Again, I'm going to do the same actions, but here I will take this. I'll paste it here. Just I'm replacing this with absolute XPath. Okay, remove everything and write the relative XPath. What is this? What is the syntax of relative XPath? So this is the syntax of relative XPath. It will start from the middle of the DOM HTML. Okay, so it will start from the middle of the DOM HTML. But absolute XPath will start from the root node. Okay, root node. So that is the reason why we are able to see that it's no complete slashes, one single slash and followed by the next slash. Likewise, it will try to identify each and every element. Okay, if anything is like modified in between, for example, if this some div has been added, okay, let's look into the disadvantages of that absolute XPath. Okay, so now you see, so first XPath would be using the absolute method and second one would be using the relative method. Both will do the same thing. First time it will do with the help of like absolute XPath. Second time it will do with the help of relative XPath. See it entered. Let me check what happened. Okay, so we did not use a quit here, so that is the reason why it did not close the page. Okay, fine. You can see now it clicked on the submit button and you can see the results of the mobile, Samsung mobile. Okay, so this is how we'll be using the absolute XPath and relative XPath. For example, now you see some div has been added here. Okay, so I'm not sure like the div has removed or div has been added. So in this case, what happens now? If I take the second div or something, if it is not able to identify this, or if something has changed between the tag, okay, some new thing has been introduced here. Let us take the some new div has been introduced in between. So in this case, what happens is like it will like change in the XPath. Okay, so change in the XPath. So absolute XPath, the disadvantage of absolute XPath is like it will start from the root. If something changes in between, so it will not identify the element properly. Okay, so it will not identify the element properly. Now it's going to throw the no such element exception, or it is trying to identify the element because you have given the implicit weight. Okay, so I will talk about implicit weight, explicit weight, fluent weights, and static weights, and we are talking about synchronization. But for now, you see, I just changed the XPath. Like I've added something or I've just removed this. Okay, so removed one, instead of one, I'm putting two. So if it's not finding this one, so what it is doing is like it's throwing the exception. Do you see the exception here? No such element exception. But in case of the second method, so it will go and try to identify it and it will just, so it will not do this quit actually. Okay, so I just closed it. Now I'll method. Okay, let me just comment this code from here. I'll just comment this line. I need to have this one. Element. Okay. Now we see here it is like related XPath. Okay, so whatever it may change in between, like from root to the child. Like for example, this is a child. For example, this is a child of the root. So if something changes prior to this. Okay, I mean to say that see, till input it is coming from the root. If something changes in between, in case of related XPath, it will not consider that one. Okay, so because this is like it's saying that directly pointed to that particular node. Okay, particular tag, and it is considering the properties here. You see, happily it will open the browser, identify the element, enter the text, then it will close it. Okay, so now related XPath is like we have advantages over related XPath is that we can directly go and identify the elements on the web page. Okay, absolute XPath is like from root we are going to take, so that is the reason why we don't consider this absolute XPath as like feasible approach for writing the XPaths. Okay, so this is all about like absolute XPath and related XPath. I'll just change this so that you can practice it. Okay, so still you can write this. Click on it, print sleep. Okay, so this is all about absolute XPath and related XPath. Let me write. So here I'll write it under this. I'm writing a comment here so that you can understand. Absolute XPath. This is relative Okay, so this is about like absolute XPath and related XPath. Now we'll try to see the different examples here. I'm going to take absolute XPath. Two example. Open it. Now I want to perform the same action here, but I want to consider the different attribute. Okay, I'm using the ID, right? I want to use the name. If I want to use a placeholder, I want to use something like you can see the class name or something. Okay, so D or something. So I want to go with the name first. Okay, so I'll copy this. Now what I'm going to do is like I'll change the attribute. At the name is equals to. So what is that? Fields keywords. Okay, so just give the fields keywords. Let me see. This element got identified. Okay, so this is one way of identifying the XPath. Okay, here in elements. Okay, so open the DOM here in the elements. Control F. When you click the Control F, you'll get this small text box here. So here you can write and you can see that it's if it is matching, it will show you like this is what the XPath valid XPath that we have written. For example, if you have written something like this, see 0 0, there is no element with these properties. If I write the proper elements, then it will identify. Okay, what is that? / input @ tag name. Tag name. Here it is like attribute and the value. Okay, so copy this. Go to the console. How do we identify here? Is like for XPath you have to write $X. Okay, $X. After that you can just paste your content here. So it is showing like one element is identified. When you click on it, expand this. When you click on this, you'll see it is taking you back to the elements. Okay, so this is what proper XPath that we have. Now we are going here and we are going to change the change it and put this XPath. Okay, so let's go and try to. So we are writing. Now we have different. Attribute. Okay, so earlier we used ID, now we are using name. Okay, so what it does is like it's just clicked on this best and it closed it. Okay, I can see we don't have any exceptions here. Okay, so don't worry about this socket connection. So this is different issue. So now you can see that we don't have any issues here. Okay, so input name. So likewise, I want to identify with some other. Okay, so here we have use a partial link text, right? So what I'm going to do is like I'll try to identify the help of XPath. XPath. Going here. After typing Samsung mobile, I want to click on this Amazon Mini TV. Okay, so or something else. Okay, so here it is like all menu items that we have here. Otherwise, I'll just try to click on this first mobile. But all the properties are little dynamic. Okay, so to show you a simple example here. So minimum range. Okay. So you can see that input type and we have some minimum placeholder minimum. Okay. So if you want to identify this element with the attribute name placeholder. Okay. For this, what we do is like we'll just remove this name and we'll give the placeholder as like what is that? We're trying to identify the element as like. So it has to just click on this some minimum value. I want to enter some data here. Okay. Placeholder mean. And you see it is able to identify the element. Okay. So I'll enter something text into it. Go here and put this XPath. So in case like if you want to enter something, okay, something into this directly, one thing is like we can just identify this element and we can create a reference variable for this web element interface. Okay, if you want to perform some actions, like if you want to send the data, like in next line you can do it. Okay, so after that you want to click on it. So multiple actions, if you want to do it, you can directly use this web element and you can identify that and store that web element into this object. Okay, so but in case if you want, if it's like only one single operations, directly we can do it. Okay, so find find element dot send case. Here I'm going to send some data. Okay, so minimum is like I'm searching for this, searching mobile with minimum value 2000. Okay, two ways that we can do. One is like you can use the web element and you can store that element into this object and you can perform multiple actions on it. If it is like a single action, okay, so directly you can use this dot send keys or whatever methods which are available as part of web element will be coming here. See here, observe 2000 it has printed, right? So here you can see 2000 value. Okay, it closed it. Okay, it is faster, guys. So if you want to see it again, I'll show you. I just put 4 seconds wait so that we can see the result. You can see this, the value 2000, it has entered. Okay, it identified and it entered the value here. Okay. So this is like the XPath that we can write with the attribute and the value. Okay. So whatever attribute that we want to identify the element, which will help us to identify the element uniquely. Okay. So that attribute we are going to use it here. So let's go back to this. Now you see, I want to identify this particular element with help of like, some we should have, like, for example, when you go here, you can see there is a type hidden. Okay, type hidden. Let me identify this element first. I'll remove this. There are some properties which are like, which have a duplicate. Okay, so here you can see this is element, this is element, and this is element. I want to get the text of this. Okay, so this is kind of like a, so here we have, okay, let me just go back here. So this is kind of like a text, that there we have a text, right? So I want to get the text of it. Okay, so I want to get the text of this particular element. So I need to identify this element, right? First I need to identify this element. Let's see that all the properties here we have, like type is like type for all the 4 attributes, that whatever attributes that we are trying to identify are similar. Okay, so and this is also kind of similar, and this is kind of a like no different values here. Okay, so ID is similar and type is similar, and we have a different value here. So we'll try to take something which is like, not a numeric. Okay, so to understand it in a basic way, so I want to identify something which is not a numeric. Okay, so let me just take this. Okay, we have a departments and we have something like review, brand reviews, sections, everything. Okay, so here also we have a space. So if I take any class name with the spaces, then it will throw the compound class exception. Okay, so instead of that, I'll try to, okay, let me take another site so that I can show you how do we use the and or conditions. Okay, so next is like we are going to discuss about and or conditions. If both conditions are true, then it's going to identify the element. Okay, if any one of the condition is false, then it's not going to identify the element. So let me just go to this site. Yeah. Now you can see input type is text, and a placeholder is first name and last name. Okay. So you can see we have a different names here. So what is my condition is like, I'm going to use and operator here. And operator, what it does is like, if both the attributes has, like, one element has both the attributes, then only it's going to identify the elements. Otherwise, it's going to throw the no such element exception. Okay. So to identify them uniquely, we are going to use and operator. Okay. So Control F. Now you see I'm going to write the text path. Okay. Input at the rate type is equals to, what is that we have? Text. Okay. I'll try to maximize it now. See. Text. Okay. So now you see we have 2 elements here. It has identified 2 elements, but I need to identify uniquely. So for that, what I'm going to do is like, I'm going to use and operator, and address placeholder is equals to first name. Okay, now you see and operator, what it does is like, if 2 attributes, whatever we are trying to identify, if 2 attribute has this values, okay, matching values, then only it will identify the element. If, see, for example, if you don't have a first here, you can see placeholder is like, I'm just writing first. Okay, so what is the placeholder? It is like first name. If both of them are true, then only it will identify the element. Let's go and try to execute this code. I'm going to write a different class for this, xpath3, and I'll change the URL also. Mission demo. So what is the XPath that we are trying to use to identify this element uniquely with the help of and operator? Okay, so let me take this, and here what I'm going to do is like, I'm going to use and remove this. I'll try to enter some data in it. Okay, so I'm copying this and pasting it here. Placeholder. If that element has both the properties, okay, if that element has both the properties, type is equal to text and placeholder is equal to first name, then only it will try to enter some data. Okay, otherwise it's going to throw the element not exception. No such element exception. Okay. See, now it has entered Srikanth here. Okay. So let's go and try to change the property value of placeholder. Let's go and execute this code. So now what happened? We have type is equal to text, but placeholder is equals to first name. But what is that I have given here? I've given here is only first. So when you try to identify that element with the help of this particular first, then it's going to, like, it doesn't return anything here. Okay. So now you see, when I remove this, it's not returning anything. So one condition is passed, another condition is failing. So that is the reason why it is not able to identify the element. Okay. So it throws the no such element exception. So it's like no such element exception because that element does not have the first. Placeholder is like first. Okay. So now it's kind of like we can use R condition also. I know one element as the property, other element property, I'm not sure about it, but I want to uniquely identify it. Okay. So in that case, we are going to use R condition. Now you see what it is doing is like AND condition will check for both properties are available in that particular for that particular element. But R condition is like one property is available, another property I'm not sure about it. Okay. For example, you can give like null also. But what it is trying to do is like now you see it is identifying two properties here. Let me just write first. So it is not still you can see that it is identifying both the properties because we have both the properties have like text and text. Okay, expand this, you can see text. So here also we have a text. For example, first what I'm going to do is like I'll take placeholder. Placeholder is equals to first name R type is equals to okay. Now you see because this type is equals to text has like two properties, two elements has a same properties. Okay, same property names. So type is equal to text, type is equal to text. Okay, it doesn't care about like what is the sequence, but our condition what it does, if this is false, it will go and try to check for the next one. Okay, if it is true, then it's going to identify the element. Okay, but still you can see when I use this same method. Okay, so same method like that I used for the AND operation, but only replacing the R condition. Okay, but the same XPath that we have. Okay, only the change is like we are just using the AND operator here, and but now I give the OR operator. Still, you can see that it's going to, if I give the last name also. So what it does is like it's going to enter the data in the first field. Because find element, what it does, it's going to take the first occurrence of that element. Okay. So last name is equals to like placeholder is equals to last name I've given. What it has done? This is the actual property, right? So, but it is identifying this property and it is entering the data. So, what is the what is the actual operations of this find element is like first occurrence. You can see it will say that the find the first occurrence of the given method. Okay, this method is affected by the implicit wait times. Okay, this is different, but you can see what it does is like it's going to return with the first element. Okay, so first element. So you can see the first matching element on the current page. Okay, though it identified n number of elements there. Okay, for example, if you take another example here. So let me take an example. Okay, the red type is equals to this one. But when I take the group of classes here, see we have form group here, right? So I'm going to identify this element with div at the red class is equals to form group. Okay, so when you try to do some actions on this form group, okay, in this case, what happens is like it's going to only identify the first element and it will try to enter the data into it. Okay, so what it does is like based on this, so it will identify the first occurrence of that element and it will return that element. Okay, so you need to remember that find element will do the what it does is like it will return the first occurrence of that element and do the operations on that element. Okay, so though you have like 13 elements identified, it will only return the first element, one element at a time. Okay, first element, and it will return it to the user can do whatever action he wants to perform. So this is like we need to be careful with using the find element. Find element returns the exception if it is not finding the element. Okay, for example, if you have group one, form group 1 to 3, so it will try to identify the element in the DOM. If it is not available, it will return the exception. Okay, so what it returns is like it's returns the exception. Here you can see it returns the exceptions. What is that exceptions? No such element exception if no matching elements are found. If matching elements are found, then it is going to return the first matching element on the current page. Okay, so this is what we have to return. We have to remember, okay, return what it returns. It will return the first occurrence, first matching element of the current page, and throws the exception if that element is not available. Okay, so this is about the find element. Now you see, it's going to identify the first element. It will enter the data. Even though if the first name, so it will go and identify the first occurrence of that matching element on the page. And operator, what it does is like if two conditions are true, two attributes has the values, okay, then it will go and execute that particular code. I want to say that it will identify the element. Otherwise, we are using OR condition. I'm not sure like about what are the different conditions that we have. For example, if you have a number of conditions here, okay, so a number of conditions in the sense a number of attributes here. So you can still write input text is equals to type is equal to text, or placeholder is equals to first name, or you can write like you can write any other property. For example, you go and identify this one. For example, we have ng model is equals to first name. Okay, so here I'll copy that and I'll show you. R@C ng model. So still it is identifying these two elements. Okay, so likewise you can write. For example, if you want to identify them uniquely, you can write AND condition. And condition. Let me write it as like first name. See what is happening. First, it is taking the preference of R. Okay, I'm going to write the AND condition. What happens here is like you can see. You write R condition. First, it will take the preference C. What is happening now? So it is like here we have this availability. AND condition is like returning two properties available. R condition is like last name, but it is not available. But somewhere like you can give like this. Now you can see it is like first it is checking for this two conditions and is returning true. After that, if R condition has the false condition also, it will be identifying the element. Okay, so if I remove this AND condition, if I remove this first, I will see what is happening. It's going and checking for this condition. And is like simply you need to remember if all the conditions are true, then only it will return true. If in our condition, if any one of the condition is true, then it will return true. Okay. So AND condition, any one of the condition is false, it will return false. Our condition, if any one of the condition is true, it will return true. Okay. So these are the things that we have to remember. These are the two conditions that we are going to use to identify the elements. Okay. What is the syntax of it? So syntax is very simple. I'm going to write the syntax here for using AND condition. Tag name is that attribute equals to value and in a single quote here. And attribute is equals to that attribute Okay. So now we are going to write our condition. Okay. Returns element if all attributes are true. If any one of the attributes is true. Okay. So for example, if you give this two values should match, attribute should have the proper values, like correct values. If you have any invalid values, in this case it will return, it will not return any element. In this case, it will return the element if any one of the conditions, like any one of the attribute values true. Okay. So next we are going to see about like what is chaining of this element. Okay, chaining of the declarations of XPath. Okay, so how do we do it is like we are going to find out. For example, now you see I'm identifying it directly, right? Input. See, here I'm trying to identify the element. Directly I'm writing input type is equal to text and placeholder is equal to placement. But we are writing like this. So, but I want to identify this element from the parent element. Okay, for example, this is a group. You have a class group here. You can say div class group. So from here, what I'm going to write is I'm going to chain it. Okay, so div and input at the rate place holder equals to what where is it located now? It is in this div. So let me just take this one. I'll take it away. You can see it is identifying the element here. So after that, what I'm going to do is like I'm going to use at the rate place is equals to okay. Now you see. So what is the additional thing that we have added here? It is like div. From parent I'm coming. Okay. So what is a parent? Like it can be a grandparent or parent. Okay. So here you see this is a parent and this is like grandparent. So it is located under this. Okay. It is located under this. So what it says is like it is trying to identify all the divs. In that all the divs we have an input tag. Okay. So under this you can see again we have two divs. Okay. So here we have this is first div and this is like two divs. In these two divs we can have like an input will be available in the both the divs now. I want to uniquely identify. How do we uniquely identify now? I'm going to use the placeholder and which is like unique property of this particular element. So I need to provide that one. If otherwise what happens is like, see now what it is like, it will consider all the, for example, control Z. Yeah. See, now what it is doing is like it's trying to identify the number of inputs which are available as part of this div. Okay. In all divs, we need to identify all inputs. Okay. For example, if you give the single slash, what it does is like it's going to see now what is happening in all divs. We have a inputs. Okay. So when I click on this, it will take this div. Under this, we have inputs here. What are the inputs that are available? See in all divs in the sense now it will come here. Okay. It is coming from this root and it is taking for that div. Under that div, we have an input here. Okay. So what it is doing is like it's trying to identify the first element and it's returning. Okay. Now you see, so it's going to identify the first occurrence of all the divs. Okay. All the divs, this is like all the divs. Inside that divs, we are trying to identify the first occurrence of that input. So that is the reason why it is showing this many occurrences. Okay. So let me expand it and I'll show you manually so that you can understand. Okay. Form groups. See now, I'll expand this first. We have input here. I'll expand this form group and we don't have input here, so it is not showing up. So I'll expand this form group, expand this one also. We don't have inputs here. Yeah, here we have input. Okay, so input here. Again, expand this. So you have input type. Okay, let me just show you again. See, input, whatever we are trying to identify is like from it is coming from the 9. Take it from the first. See now, input type text is called folder. We have two things, but it's showing up the first occurrence. So second also it is showing up because we have given like direct childs here. Okay, so direct childs div of slash input direct childs. If you give the double also, what it does is like it does the same thing, but additionally, if something which is available as part of like div inside that, under that particular div, if you have anything, if you have that input tag available under that anywhere in the sense it should be, it can be something like this input is available under this, not under this div, but still we have something span. Okay, I'll show you. Now we can see that if I give the single input, like in a slash, this is kind of like a direct child. If I'm putting double slash, this is kind of like a indirect child. Okay, it can be child of child. Now I'm trying to identify the childs of that div. You can see all 10 elements are identified. Now I'm going to give the double slash, double two slashes. Okay, so now it will try to identify the indirect childs also. See now, so it is trying to identify this particular indirect childs. Okay, this is like still it is part of form group, but see where it is located. So it is located under this form group. It will expand, it will expand, it will expand, and it will try to identify the element which is not a direct child, which is indirect child. Okay, for the direct child, you can use one single slash in the chain, desired chain. Okay, what we say is like chain declarations. Okay, so chain declarations. If you want to find out some elements which are residing under this div, so double slash is like it can be anywhere in the DOM. It will identify the divs. Under the div, if you want to identify the input tag, so what you need to do is like you need to use slash for the direct childs. For the indirect childs, you have to use the double slash. After that, you can write take the attribute and give the value. Okay, so first name. Now what it does is like it will try to identify this particular element within the DOM, located anywhere in the DOM. Okay, so I mean like within this DOM, located anywhere. See now what it is doing is like it is as similar as like that the XPath that we are writing. But when we want to write some chain desired chain in the sense, what happens is like in chain declarations. So if you want to identify something, so this input placeholder is equal to first name can be available in any one of the divs. Okay, so in any one of the divs. I'm going to say that to differentiate with the duplicates. In that case, what we do is like we are going to use the chain declarations. Chain declarations are like you can try to identify that element with the parent element or ancestors that we are going to use. Ancestors in the sense, so this is kind of like a parent. From parent we are coming. Okay, so if we have this element identified uniquely, directly we can write this input at placeholder and first name. So whatever attribute that we have, the attribute and the value. But in case if this is like a duplicated, so which is already available. For example, you see, I'm going to use type. Okay, so now you see it is available. Like duplicate values, like it is showing duplicate records. But the thing is like under this div we have this input type text is input tag with the type is equal to text. This is the thing, but childs are duplicated. Okay, in this case what we need to do is like I'll tell you how do we do this. We have to use another methods for this. Okay, so for now it's like we are using the chain declaration so that to identify this element uniquely. Okay, so single slash is representing the single child and double slash is representing the direct child. Sorry, in case of single slash, double slash we are going to use it for identifying the indirect childs also. I mean direct childs as well as like the child of childs. Okay, so for example, now you see when I say div, so it is showing up 196. Now I want to identify divs with some class name is equals to only I want to identify the form group. In that case, what I'm going to do is like I'm going to use form group. Okay, so that class is equals to its form group. Now you see only one of one. I got only one of one. That is showing only one of one. But I want to come from the root node under this. I want to identify the input. So we don't have anything called input here. So let me take under this form ID. I want to identify the form group. Okay, let's see what I'm going to do. Like form at that ID equals to. See what is happening now. This is a form group that I'm able to identify. First, I'll identify the form group. Only one form group. Under this, I want to identify the due. So how many dues are there? 36 dues. So here I want to identify only this form underscore. And see there are 30 groups. Okay, 13 groups. Inside that I want to identify the input. So what it is doing now, there are 11 inputs. Inside that I want to still identify the element with unique properties. Like for example, placeholder. So this is nothing but chaining. First, I am trying to identify the form attribute. Under that form attribute, again we have like div attribute. Under that div, I'm like div tag. Under that we have input tag. And here I'm going to uniquely identify. So when do we use this chain declaration? Is like whenever we have some properties which are duplicated. Now you see, we are trying to identify this element uniquely. So if nothing, these are not repeating, you can remove them. Okay, you can remove them and you can directly give this. If for example, if these things are repeating, there are like n number of form IDs, like forms in that we have like ID is equals to basic like whatever it is, like property which is repeating. And here also we have a dues within that we have a same properties repeating. Okay, duplicate properties. In that case, what we do is like we try to identify them uniquely. So this chain declarations will help you to identify them uniquely. So this is identified uniquely. Now under that we have one div with the property class, and we have like one input and with the placeholder is equals to name. Okay. So likewise, we'll be identifying the elements uniquely. So now what it does is like when we execute the steps, what it does is like it's going to identify this element uniquely. Okay. Let me just go and execute this. Whatever we have written here. So I'll be executing this with. Okay. Let me create another class so that it will be easy for you to understand. So this is chain declaration. Okay. So let me remove this one. Let me stop the execution. Otherwise, it will throw the exception. Okay. Okay. Now you see, click on. Nothing but it has entered the data in this particular element. It identified the element. So this is the proper XPath that we have written using the chain declarations, and we are sending data. Okay, we are entering. Send case will help you to enter the data in that particular element. Okay, so this is nothing but chain declaration. Let me just write the syntax of this chain declaration here. Chain declarations. Here, chain declarations. So when do we use it? To identify the element uniquely. If you have any duplicates, to identify elements uniquely. Okay. So next we have the other thing is like methods we have like contains, starts with, and then we have text. Okay, what is the syntax of contents is like, see, I'm going to use this same. So contents is like, if you are trying to identify some element, okay? So if you are trying to identify some element, so you're not sure about like, it may change as we discussed about like some dynamic changes, right? So in that case, what happens is like this attribute value may change, okay? So it, for example, today we have test 1, 2, 3. Tomorrow it may change to test 2, 3, 4. And after that, it may change to test 4, 5, 6. Okay, what is changing here? The numeric value is changing, but the value which is like, which is kind of like a non-numeric. So it's not changing. Then what we have to write is like, we have to give like value, which is kind of like, not changing, that will be given here. Okay. So for example, here you see test, only the attribute test. Okay. So just it will go and check for that particular value. Will have the text or not. Okay. It contains text or not. If it contains the text, it will return that element. Otherwise, it will return no such element exception. Okay. So let me show you the example here. I'll go to the site. We can take Amazon here. The best example would be Amazon. See, for example, if you want to identify Android, see, we have like on Android 10.4, 11.4, like this, we have a lot of things which are available on this. Okay. Let me identify. We have a span here and we have a lot of elements which are. So now I went to identify Android 10. Okay. So for this, what I can do is like we have to use one other method text also. Let me just take some example, which is kind of like have some group methods. Okay. Yeah, checkboxes. We have checkboxes here. Let me go back. I'm going to try something called bats. Okay, we have seen packs. Okay, I want to identify only packs. So this is text we have. So for identifying the text, we have another method that I'm going to use it. But what I'm trying to identify is like I want to identify some element which has some unique value, and the rest of the value would be changing for that. Okay. So in that case, what it is like we are going to use the contents. Let me just check something. All that we have something. Okay. We have a roll button, open menu. Okay. So let's do one thing is, so I'll show you here. So we have something which is called input type, and we are trying to identify. For example, this ID would be changing. Okay. Let's consider this 2 tab search text box 1, 2, 3. Okay. So if it is like, if we are not sure about like the other part of the text which is changing, but still we are trying to match some content of that particular string. Okay. So in that case, what we do is like we are going to write the syntax in this way. Okay. So with the help of contents method, contents, and you can write ID search. Okay, it's part of the text or part of the string which is matching. it will return you that. Okay, so it should be like, sequence of it. Okay, if you say, for example, in this case, like a 2 tab search. Okay, so it is kind of a sequence, tab search. If you can give the search, it will search for this. For example, if you have something called tab search tab, so it will not do that. Okay, so it should be a sequence. Okay, it should be in a sequence. 2 tabs search text box. Even if you give the text box, it will at least give the text, it will go and identify the element. Okay, text box, it will identify the element. But in case like if you write box text or text box search, it will not identify. It should be in a sequence. Okay, whatever the string that you are considering, it should be in a sequence. Okay, so give the search, will go and identify. What is the syntax? Syntax of it is like ID. Sorry, I have written syntax in wrong way. So this is like ID, comma, like attribute, comma, and the value. Okay, it should be given in a circular brackets, and all the things should be given in a, like, content should be in a square brackets. Okay, so now you see what I'm trying to do is like identify this particular element with the contents method. Okay, so this method is available in XPath. Now you go and try this contents method. Copy pasted this, and I want to enter some data. Okay, so here I need to change the XPath. What I need to do is like I'll give the Samsung. Okay, contents. It will search for that particular string, whatever string that we have given here. It will search in this ID. Okay, of input type. The current web page. Okay, so it should be. Let me just go back. Then bring it. To paste it in the get method. What it does, you can see Samsung mobile. Okay, to identify the element and it just enter the data into this particular search box. Okay, so this is with the help of like contents method. Okay, so I'll try to add rest of the methods here itself so that you can easily refer to a single class. Contents. Okay, so here I'm identifying the element with the contents method. So next is like I'm going to use starts with. Starts with is like it is very like you'll go here. You can see. So if I'm using starts with, okay, starts with ID. So it should be like a sequence here. Okay, so what we have to give is like we have to start giving it from the inception, like starting of that string, whatever string character that we have, it should be given here. Now it will identify, you see, 2 tab. If you remove this tab, it will identify. But if you try to give something as like the string which is not with the characters which is not starting with 2, then what happens, like it will not search for that. Okay, if you see this here, it's not working, but it works with the contents. Okay, contents is like it will search this substring in a given string, but starts with is like it will search the string from the start of this particular character. Okay, so from it will take first character 2, like first character T, after that W, after that 2. Okay, 2 tab search starts with. Okay, so starts with. Now you see it is able to identify the element. So it will consider from the starting character. Okay, so here starts with P, same thing. paste it here, cut it. I'll just comment this one, okay? Using starts with. And it can be any attribute, guys. It's not only ID, it can be class, it can be name, it can be placeholder, it can be whatever attribute that we have as part of that element that we can consider. Now you see Samsung mobile. It will close the browser. What is happening now? It is trying to identify the element ID with this string that we are supplied, and we are using the method starts with. Okay, this is a function of XPath. Okay, so this is starts with. Let me just demo this also. So it will work anyways, like it will try to type the same thing. Here I'm going to use backpack. Okay, it is typing Samsung backpack. Okay, so you saw that, right? So first it is identifying the contents and it is identifying with the starts with. So now we have entered something here, right? So let me just clean it out so that we can easily. So I'll take it, the web element. We'll clean up the text, okay? So that it will be easy to identify the next element and enter the data. So here I'm just. It's cleaned up. Now it is putting some backpack. Okay. So it's something that element not clear. It is cleaning up and it's putting some data backpack. Okay. I'll put some sleep here. Okay. So now the other thing is like we want to identify the text of it. Okay. Whatever text that we have entered here. So we want to identify it. For example, we are entering some backpack, right? Or else we want to identify some text. Okay. After you enter this back. Just changing it. I can use the same element, guys. Okay. So I can use the same element because it will override the existing value. Okay. So back. See after this, what I'm going to do is like send data. After that, I'll click on element submit. See after that, I want to get some text. Okay. So when I just click on this backpack, click on submit. Okay. So here I want to get all the, so whatever elements, whatever things that is displayed here, I want to get the first occurrence of it. Okay. So this is what I need to write the text that I have to get. Okay. So for this, what I'm going to do is like I'll write the XPath. Now you see, how do we write the XPath now? So where is it located? It is located in the span and we have what is that we want to get it? So we want to get the text of text is equals to, so tiny down. So what it is doing is like, if you find this, we can say that okay, it is in the backpack and we are able to see the tiny down. So how do we identify the text on this particular web page? If you want to identify it, we can use this particular method, okay, text. So otherwise, if you want to get the text, okay, so get the text of it. Okay, get the text of it. For example, here we are trying to enter some data. Backpack is the text that we have entered. So to verify whether we have entered this data or not. So in that case, what we have to do is like we have to use a method called, let me just write it here. Use a method called, so that will return you the string. Okay, string text is equals to element dot get text. Okay, so get text. Let's go and identify that. First, I'll tell about the get text. Then after we can look into the text method in the export. We'll enter Samsung mobile. After that, it will clean up. Backpack. We'll get the text. We'll close it. What it is saying, like starts with element, starts with ID. Stale element reference exception. Okay, so let me just do one thing. I'll take the different web element, guys. I'll tell you why that stale element exception is coming. We'll enter the Samsung. We'll clean up. Now you see, so it has entered the backpack and it will get the data. Still we are getting the stale element reference exception. I got it. Why this is throwing stale element exception. I'll tell about this exceptions again, don't worry. So no such element exception, stale element exceptions, why they are coming again. This is Samsung. After that, it will remove that backpack and it will close it. Now you get the, put here. You should get the text of it. Okay, it is not considering that one. So let me take some other element. Okay. So when we are going to get the text of it. Okay. So first we'll submit it. And after that, we'll try to get the backpack. We should get the backpack details, like whatever results. If you find the results or something, so we can assume that we got some results. Okay. So here I'm going to take okay, let me go here, guys. I'll try to show you a good example. So that okay, I'm entering some data here. I want to get the text. What is the text of it is like? It has entered some data, right? So I want to get the text of it. So we'll replace total first name. So here I'll remove it. So we can submit, need not to worry. So when we submit, right, the page gets refreshed. So in that case, what happens is like, again, we have to re-identify that element. Otherwise, it will throw this tail element exception. Okay. So let me go with the example of XPath text method. So I'll take everything from here. I'm just changing the slide, guys, so that you can get an example to understand. Okay. So I'm going here. Doing this. Now I'm going to identify contents. What is that? We have placeholder, right? Placeholder. And it is FIRST first. I'm not clearing out. I'm getting the get text. And try to print it. Okay. So I think we got it, but we did not print it. That is the reason why it is not showing up there. Okay. So let's print it. I forgot to print that value. Now you see, it will enter the data, it will print it. So earlier example also works fine, but only the thing is like we did not print it. It will enter the data Srikanth, then from that element it will get the text. So what is the text that we have? So return the text. Just add some thread.sleep here. Some 4 seconds. It is printing here. You can see that it is like nothing has been printed, but it is showing up. This is the null value it is showing here. Let me. That would be the best example here. I'll try to print the value. Okay. I'll just use this. Yeah, we already have, we use this one. Get print. I'm printing the text here. So let me take another example, guys, here. So it should print it, but you can see this full name is displayed here, right? I want to get the label of it. Label of this particular element. Okay. So here I'll identify it. You can see this is the text that is available. Okay. So this text will be written here. So I want to get the label of it. Okay. So here in this case, what I'm going to do is like, I'll just take this form group, Control F. I'll write the form group here. So what is that div? Head class is equals to form group / label. Label. And here I'm trying to identify that element. Okay. Now we got the element. So I want to get the label of this particular element. Okay. So here what I'm going to do is I'll take it. I'll come here. I'll just save this. I'll come back. Element identify label. I'll get the text of it. Okay. So it will not send the data because it is a label. Otherwise, it will throw the exception. Element not interactable exception. Okay. So we'll discuss about exceptions also. Okay. So exceptions are like that will be returned when something is not working fine. So this will be asked in interviews generally. Okay. What is that full name? That should be written, right? So you got the full name here. So what it is doing is like it will try to get the text from that particular label. We have this label and we have a text in that, so it is going to return it. Okay, so here you got the full name. So likewise, we get the text from that particular input box also, but I need to check that one. Why is not throwing the, why is it not allowing me to get that? Okay, so here is like full name that I'm getting it because we have a label which is displayed here. So if you want to get the first instance placeholder also, we have the value, right? If you want to get the tag attribute value, okay, if you want to get the attribute value, that is also quite possible. So how do we get it now? So here I'm going to take, so first I'll print the text here. So then I'm going to use dot find element by dot xpath. Give me a second. So now you see I'm trying to identify that element now. So div, what is that we have? Input, right? Input. Put at that placeholder is equals to first name. Otherwise, you can directly give the input here. Okay, so this is the element, right? We are identifying and we are trying to get the attribute of element name that you can give the attribute. Okay, so what is that attribute? Placeholder. Okay, let's go and try to execute this one. So null, it says like placeholder is equals to null, but because this ID, this tag does not have this placeholder, it says like, okay, let me just check. Go back to this. Let me identify with type text. So if I say input here directly, if I say input, it's going to identify all the tags. Okay, so it should return me that particular thing, but it's not returning. Let me take one attribute for that, and I want to get the placeholder value. Okay, so did I write the proper spelling here? PLSE placeholder. Yes. Let me identify with type is equals to text. It is showing null, but it should not show the null because we have the attribute placeholder, right? Let me just take the type here. Otherwise, get attribute. I'm getting the attribute from this particular element. Okay, so element is identified here. So let me just close after this. Quit so that now while closing it manually. So now you see I have the property placeholder here, input and the placeholder. Placeholder is like it should give me the placeholder, this first name or last name. So what is that I'm trying to get is like I'm trying to get the attribute from this particular element. Okay. It's return it, guys. Actually, it's not returning. Let me just check why this is not returning. So it's simple that we are trying to get the attribute. Okay. I identified it. Type input element stum dot element dot get attribute type. So it is returning null here. So So it should not return null. It should get the attribute out of it. Okay. Sometimes it happens with the this one also. Let me just take input Amazon.in. Amazon.in. Element is equals to find element type is equals to text. Okay, type is equal to text. I want to search ID. I want to get the ID property. Okay, so I can get it like ID. I'm pasting. So I'll identify this element with the type is equal to text, and after that I'll be getting the ID of it. So get text would be getting the text from that particular element. Okay, so get attribute is like what type of attribute that you want to get. Now you got it, right? So there it was not working, but here it is working. Okay, so if you want to get the ID of it, so what you have to do is like whatever the attribute that you want to get, you can get it. So just you need to identify that element. Then after you want to identify or you want to get the attribute of it. Okay, otherwise you want to get the tag name also, that you can do it. Okay, so with the help of this like d dot system dot out. So what is the tag name of that element? That also you can get it. Okay, get tag name. So when you say tag name, so it will give the tag as like input. These are the methods of elements. Okay, so you can see ID property is like ID property value is 2 tab search text box, and its tag name is like input. So get tag name, get attribute, get text is like it will get the text of that particular element. Okay, so if you want to see, if you enter something here, element dot send keys and backpack, what text that we have entered, it should return input. And dot getting the text of it. It's not returning actually, it should return it. Okay, get text should return this. Okay, so I'll just check this one, guys. So get text is like we already saw that, right? So how do we get the text of that particular element in case of like, here, if you want to get the text, so what you need to do is like, you need to get the attribute. Like for example, here, I'm going to identify its label. So I want to get the label name. So what we are trying to do is like, here we are getting the, say here it's like, we have a tag name attribute is equals to value and the text that we have. Okay, so when we have this text here, so it will return in the text. So input also we have the text here. We are entering the text here, right? So it will get the text. Okay, when you say get text of this particular element, then it will return in the text of the element. Okay, so that I'll check and let you know tomorrow. So that it should not be any like it's like very easy that directly we can just get text element dot get text, it will return the text of that element. Okay, whatever you have set it. So I'll stop it here, guys. I'm going to upload all these programs today. So please practice. It's very important. Only we have discussed half part of the XPath. Still, we have a lot of things that we are going to discuss. Okay. So starts with also, I'm going to write it here. So what is the syntax of starts with? So just you need to use it starts with. But what is the condition? So whatever value that you are giving, it should have the starting characters. Okay, the substring should start from the the start from the index of 0. Otherwise, it will not return any value. Okay, so text is like, so we have the text function. So this function will discuss about this tomorrow. Okay, so text. So I'll show you this text also. How do we get the text of it? Directly we can write the syntax here. See, so input text is equals to some. So if it is like a label here, so if you want to get the text of it, okay. So for that, what we have to do is like we have to give the tag name label, and text is equals to what is the text that I want to identify. This is the text, right? So copy it and paste it here. Check. Let me check this one. I've written the label name wrong. Label and text is equals to what is that? First name. Okay, now you are able to identify this. Okay, so what is the syntax of it? The syntax is like tag name, text is equals to, and when we can club both contents and text also. Okay, how do we write it? It's like, go back here. First, I'll write the syntax of it. Text is equals to, directly we can give the value. Okay, so this is for the text. If you want to combine the contents also, sorry guys, I'm taking more time here because this we have to cover. This is very important topic. I'm going little slow and I'm taking lengthy time. So if you want to find out something like, text, if you are not sure about it has only the full, I only remember the full, and the name would be changing. Name would be like, sometimes it will be star, sometimes dollar, sometimes it is percentile. Okay, if it is changing this way, so it will be hard to find out. Okay, so text for this, and we have like spaces also. So for example, if you have something like this, so we cannot identify with the text. So for that, what we have to do is like we have to use, see here, I'll take something, so wherein it has a lot of spaces in it. Yeah, you see, we want to identify this particular element with the text. So cricket has got space here. So when you go to the movies, click on it. See, movies has like one space. Cricket has like two space. But I'm not sure, like here it should be a dynamic value wherein I need to be I'll be entering it, and based on that it should identify. But we have spaces in it, trailing and leading spaces. To avoid those trailing and leading spaces, what we do is like we are going to take label contains. Inside that contents, I'm going to give the text comma. So here I'll give the cricket. Okay. So now we are able to identify it. Okay. I'll remove the spaces. Though you remove the spaces, it will identify the element. Okay. So this is like contents. Okay. Contents with the text. So it can be anything else. Okay. It's not only text. Text is like, if you are giving the text, then you have to give the open and closed bracket here. Okay. Circular brackets, because this is a condition. Okay. It's a function. Okay. So if you are trying to give something else, like for example, ID. @ID, what you give is like, you just give the @ID, and you can give the cricket. Okay. So if we have this ID is equals to cricket, then it will come. Otherwise, it will not come. Just it is like a checkbox. So we have to give the checkbox. Checkbox. Result we have. Let me go and try to identify it again. ID, input type. Okay, it's a input type. So we have to change the input tag. Input type. See, now we got it right. Contains. It can be anything, guys. Attribute name. But if you are using text, you should be specially giving it as like text. Open and close parenthesis. Then comma. Then can you trigger something? It will identify. Hence, what is that spelling? It's the comma. Again, it's like it's not a input. It's a label. Okay. So we tag name should be proper, and if you are using contains along with the text should be a method. Okay, it's a method. So text comma you can get right the other things like whatever you want to identify that you can give it here. Okay. So if it is a text, you can give the text. If it is like something other attribute, then you can give @ attribute. Okay. There are two things that we can use with the text is like here. I'm going to write tag name, contents, text, and the value. Okay, so this is like contents to the text, and the two things that I told you, right? Normalization space. So that we'll discuss tomorrow. How do we eliminate the leading and trailing spaces of particular element? Okay, when we have some element identified, so in that we have leading and trailing spaces, then we can remove with the help of normalized space. So that is another function that we have. Okay, so here we covered a lot of things today. So we covered syntax of XPath, both absolute and relative XPath. We use AND condition, OR condition to identify the elements, and we discussed about chain declarations. We discussed about contents method, starts method, text method, contents. Okay, so here we have already discussed it, but we have used contents with text. Okay, so contents is like simply contents, attribute, and the value. If you are using the text, then you have to use contents, text, and the value directly. So text is like if you want to identify some elements with the text, then you have to give the text and the value. It starts with is like starting character of that particular value of that attribute. Okay, so that we have to give, and then we can write whatever content that's like. It should be a sequence, and it should be the character starting with that particular name. Okay. Okay, guys. Thanks for your time. So I'm going to share these things with you today, so you can practice it. Okay. I'm going to upload this program today. So whatever we have discussed as part of Selenium test and Selenium XPath. Okay, so still we have a long way to go. We are going to use accesses, and then we are going to use like special characters in Selenium. How do we use the special characters in Selenium to identify the elements? Okay, so we have some notations that we are going to cover as part of XPath. Okay, thanks for your time, guys. Let's meet tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Bye.